There are calls that no officer ever wants to receive. Dispatch signals that come from places that simply do not exist on any map. On a bitter winter night, Officer Miller responded to a report of an abandoned vehicle on Highway 9. He found the car running, the lights flickering, but the driver was gone, leaving behind only a single message smeared on the inside of the windshield. "You're too late." Tonight, we open the black box of police files that were never meant for the public eye. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the world sheds its mask. This is the hour when the streets belong to entities that do not recognize human law. The officers who patrol these shadows are more than just protectors. They are the only witnesses to events that defy logic. Tonight, we take you through 15 classified files, from the suburbs of Chicago to the isolation of Poland, where the law encountered the inexplicable. It began with a quiet, trembling call from a 14-year-old girl named Emily. She was home alone in a sprawling Victorian house. She told the dispatcher, "There's a very tall man standing at the end of the hallway." When asked to describe him, Emily went silent for a moment before whispering, "He has no face, and he's starting to run." Those were the last words recorded before a strange frequency drowned out the line. When the first patrol unit arrived, they found the door locked from the inside. After forcing entry, they were met with a sight that froze them in place. Emily was gone, but the room was in a state of impossible chaos. Scorched black footprints led from the window, walked straight up the walls and across the ceiling. It was as if the intruder was not bound by the laws of Earth. Emily had simply vanished into the air. In a desolate village in Poland sits the cannibal's house, a place with a dark history. On New Year's Eve, a girl named Camilla and her friends decided to play with a Ouija board. It wasn't just a game. It was an open invitation to a presence that had been waiting behind the walls for decades. The police who were called to the scene didn't find teenagers playing. They found a spiritual crime scene. When the officers entered, they found Camilla suspended in mid-air. She was emitting guttural, animalistic sounds and speaking in dead, ancient languages. The flashlights didn't just reveal a girl. They revealed a massive shadow behind her that moved independently of her body. One officer later described the moment. It wasn't Camilla looking at us. It was something very old and very angry using her eyes. A report of a zombie came in from the suburbs of Oakland. At first, the police thought it was a cruel prank, but when the cruiser arrived, they found a man walking like a puppet. He held his hands out, muttering, "I want to see, I want to see." He wasn't on drugs. He was under the influence of something far more sinister, something that had commanded him to tear off his own eyelids so he would never have to close them again. When Officer McCory shone his light on the man's face, he wished he hadn't. The man was smiling, covered in dark blood. He looked at the officer and said, "You see it too, don't you? The policeman standing behind you." McCory was alone in his patrol car, but in that moment he felt a cold breath on his neck. The man wasn't insane. He was seeing a reality that no badge could protect. Route 210 in North Carolina is a lonely stretch of road. A driver named Jack called 911, screaming in terror. "There's something on my roof. It's pounding on the glass." The creature wasn't an animal. It was a pale, spindly freak with no facial features. It clung to the speeding truck as if wind meant nothing. In his mirror, Jack saw a smooth, white face pressed against the rear window. No eyes, yet he felt its gaze piercing his soul. After Jack managed to throw the entity off his truck, the police examined the vehicle. The claw marks were not just scratches. They had shredded the steel like paper. No biological trace was ever found. No hair, no skin, only a strong smell of ozone and a strange, glowing residue. Investigators closed the file as an unexplained incident, but Jack never drove his truck at night again. In London, Cemetery Number 7 is not a place for rest. A security guard named Arthur reported strange rituals at 3 a.m. Men in 19th century suits stood silently around an open, empty grave. They didn't speak, they didn't move, they only stared down. Whenever the police arrived, the figures would vanish in an instant, leaving behind empty graves that had been bolted shut just minutes before. The police installed hidden cameras, but the results were chilling. The cameras recorded no one entering the guard's office, yet at exactly 3:03 a.m., a piece of parchment appeared on his desk, out of thin air. It contained a list of every officer who had visited the cemetery that night, and next to each name, their future date of death. The guard resigned immediately, and the police classified the note as a state secret. Officer Peterson was chasing a suspect across an open field when a blinding pillar of white light descended from the clouds. His partner, watching from a distance, said Peterson's body didn't get pulled up. It simply dissolved into black smoke inside the light. All that remained was his service weapon and his badge lying on the scorched grass. The badge was melted, despite the freezing temperature that night. Peterson was never seen again. Sometimes, the danger comes from within the radio itself. One night, every patrol unit in the city began receiving distress calls in Peterson's voice. The officer who had vanished months prior. He was screaming, "It's so dark here, and they are hungry." The frequencies began to manifest in the dispatch room as electronic ghosts. Since that night, every radio was replaced, but some officers still hear the whispering in their headsets. Why do we tell these stories? So you realize the world is not as simple as you think. Law enforcement is the final fortress, but even fortresses fall before the unknown. If you feel a sudden chill right now, or hear a sound behind your door, do not open it. I am Marcus, and this has been our journey into the shadows of history. Subscribe to see more from our files. And before you turn off your screen, make sure the shadow watching you isn't mine. Sleep well, if you can.